This video is brought to you by PrizePicks. So the Browns officially announced that Deshaun Watson is going to be the starting quarterback for week 1 of the season. This coming through multiple reliable sources. I think Adam Schefter posted this out. This is official as official can be. The Browns are going to start Deshaun Watson. Now, if you had asked me if this would be the case a week ago, I wouldn't have been surprised, because if you've been paying attention to the Browns, and I've talked about this on this channel, the Browns had been making it clear since the 3rd week of camp where they were leaning to start the season. I think in OTAs and mini camp and up until week 3 of training camp, they were pretty up in the air about who the starting quarterback's going to be. And you could tell that by how they structured practice and how they were structuring reps and who was getting what. And then after the 3rd week of camp, there was a notable shift, right? You had the double day for Deshaun Watson and then joint practice and how they structured the preseason starts. It all pointed towards the coaching staff wanting to start Deshaun Watson. And on a pure theoretical, like if we're just talking about this without this having to happen in front of people, is the way that I'm trying to say it. You can understand how they come to this decision, right? The Browns have 2 quarterbacks that might play this year. One is a young quarterback. The other one is a veteran quarterback. They have a bunch of new players on this offense, a new offense that they're installing. Most coaches would want to play the veteran quarterback and would prefer to play a veteran quarterback. And in most cases, 99% of them, I can understand the Browns choosing to go with the veteran quarterback. Because again, on paper, it makes sense. You can go to the veteran to start the year, and then if that veteran does not play well, you can bench them and put in the young guy. And everybody will be happy, right? The problem is there is a stark difference of what this looks like on paper for the Browns and what this looks like in practice for the Browns. Deshaun Watson is a giant distraction for this team. Not just because he's infamous off the field, not just because of how people feel about his cases or how people feel about his contract. He's a massive distraction because he is going to get booed off the field by the home fans when he plays. On top of the fact that we know that this is something that deeply affects Deshaun Watson's ability to play football. This preseason is a perfect example of this, right? The first preseason game, Deshaun Watson, he wasn't great, but he was fine. He looked fine in that game. A little rusty, a little hesitant to pull the trigger at times, but he wasn't awful. He was better than Shedeur in that first preseason game. The second preseason game, the second this fan base booed him, he fell off the rails. And it looked like what it has always looked like with Deshaun Watson. I also want to bring up a point here, right? I understand that Todd is hell-bent on giving Deshaun Watson a clean slate. I understand why Todd thinks that that's going to be beneficial for the football team. But I just don't think you can ignore what Deshaun Watson has not been over the last 4 years. Let's bring this up, right? The preseason game Saturday was bad. But if you've watched the Cleveland Browns with Deshaun Watson, it wasn't unfamiliar. It wasn't shocking. It was borderline nostalgic. Deshaun Watson from Pro Football Focus, which, you know, it's a way to measure it, right? Pro Football Focus gave him a 55.5 grade. And again, I'm not one to go and act like Pro Football Focus grades are the Bible. But that's the grade that Pro Football Focus gave him. Deshaun Watson, in his career in Cleveland, has had 6 games where he was graded a 56 or lower, right? So he had a 55.5. You round that up, that's 56, right? How many games in Deshaun Watson's career was he worse or as bad as he was in that preseason game? There are 6 games, 6 games where he dropped a 56 or lower grade. In 2022, week 3, his return versus Houston, understandable. 2022, week 17, Washington. 2022, week 18, Pittsburgh, where he dropped a 38.7 grade. 2024 against the New York Giants in week 3. So, like, think about that. As bad as the Dallas Cowboys game was, he was graded a 59 in that game. That was significantly better than what he did in that preseason game. 2024, week 5 against Washington, where he dropped another 40 grade. And in 2024, week 6 against Philadelphia. I'm not trying to be mean or I'm not trying to be crude here when I say this. I'm just being honest. What we saw from Deshaun Watson wasn't an abnormal result from a fan base rejecting him. What we saw from Deshaun Watson is pretty much par the course for him since he's returned, right? Like every season Deshaun Watson has played, he had like a 38 grade in 2023 against the Colts, but like he didn't play the whole game there, right? But every season Deshaun Watson has played in Cleveland, he has dropped at least one game, if not multiple games, that were just as bad as that quarter that we saw on Saturday. So when people try to tell you that you're overreacting to one quarter or overreacting to one preseason game, I don't think they understand the volume of bad football Deshaun Watson has put out over the last 4 years compared to how often he's been on the field. 6 games. He's only played 17 since he's returned in Cleveland. Like he's only played 17 games. That's a significant chunk. 6 games where he's just as bad or much worse than he was on Saturday. So when Browns fans see this and they see that Deshaun Watson is still capable of looking as bad as he looked in 2022, as bad as he looked in 2024, and they see that after the team and the Browns and Deshaun Watson himself have been trying to sell us that it's a new day, that he's finally healthy, that he has a new coach, that all of these things have changed. But then we watch you play football, and it's the same result we've been getting since 2022. Forgive me and many Browns fans for not buying it anymore. Like there was very little appetite, a small appetite for buy-in when it comes to Deshaun Watson in 2026 to begin with. Whatever appetite there was for buy-in, it went away once he looked like that in the preseason because for months, Deshaun Watson and his people have been trying to convince us that he only looked like that in 2022. He only looked like that in 2024 because Kevin Stefanski, because he wasn't healthy. Well, he's healthy and Kevin's not here. So what's the excuse? Oh, they booed me. I can't handle it when they boo me. That's another factor that I think they have to weigh heavily. This is not the first time that Deshaun Watson has demonstrated that when people express that they don't like him, it shakes him too much. This is something, when I go back to talk to people who covered him in Houston, rings true. When I talk to people who have watched this along with me in Cleveland, it rings true. Deshaun Watson has always been somebody who really, really wants to make sure people like him. And he has been put in a situation, or put himself rather in a situation, where he is the most unlikable individual player in all of football. That, I think, is a huge part of why Deshaun Watson looks like how he does on the football field. he didn't lose a ton athletically. Physically, before the injury in 2023, he didn't lose much, but he still was dropping bad games when he was still the same athlete that he was in Houston. The thing that changed is the public perception of Deshaun Watson. See, Deshaun Watson was able to get it done when everybody liked him, and he was a well-loved figure. Deshaun Watson, for those who don't remember, was one of the most beloved players in the NFL. People thought of him as a stand-up guy, one of the best stand-up guys in the league. His charity work, all the things, his story with Warwick Dunn and everything. People looked at him as one of the, bright stars of the NFL. Once that went away, he couldn't play football at the same level. His confidence wasn't there. He said, I don't know why it's so connected, but it's obvious that it's connected because he looked like this. How he looked like in this preseason game is exactly how Deshaun Watson looked like in his first preseason game back against the Jacksonville Jaguars way back in 2022. It's exactly how he looked like when he played Houston in 2022 in Houston and he got booed. It's exactly how he looked like in 2024 when he was getting booed. Right? Like, this is a common thing. So nothing that we saw on Saturday was new information. It was confirmation that a new head coach and some time off did not change the equation for the math that is Deshaun Watson's career in Cleveland. That's all Saturday was. We knew that Deshaun Watson plus this element plus that element would create this. We just didn't know if subtracting Stefanski and subtracting his injuries from 2024 would change that result. And what we found is that, it's probably not going to change that. But despite all of that, because the Browns have bought in to what he's doing at practice, they're going to buy into him at the starter. We talked about this. This is the Deshaun Watson trap. This is what we have seen happen time and time again. There is a Greek character called Cassandra. And the character of Cassandra is somebody who is basically cursed with knowledge. They know what's going to happen. They tell people what's going to happen, and then people don't believe them. They think they're crazy, right? That's the story of Cassandra. That is the story of Browns fans versus the Browns football operation during Deshaun Watson. We know how this is going to end up. We know how this is going to play out. Deshaun Watson's probably not going to look terrible in those first two games. He's probably going to be fine on the road. But then he's going to come home, the reaction's going to be what it is, and it's going to fall off the rails. And then suddenly everybody will understand why it's a distraction, why you can't keep him out there. Suddenly. Or worse, he gets injured again and we have another ugly situation on our hands. All of this is extremely predictable and extremely preventable, but we always keep walking into the same situation. There also is a question of whether that press conference helped them or not, because the conversation people are having is, how can you start Deshaun Watson when the fans don't like him? And it frames it as if this is only a PR problem, not a football operation problem, right? The question that people are asking is, can you start a quarterback when the fans don't like him? That's not the question that we should be asking, but that's the question that the press conference put us in. Browns fans don't like Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson does not like Browns fans. Can that exist? It's assuming that the play is at a certain level. The question that preseason start should make us ask is a lot simpler. Is Deshaun Watson still playable in 2026? Does it really matter how he looks like in practice if this is what it looks like when he has pads on and it's live contact? Is this going to devolve even further? And is Deshaun Watson, who, by the way, was one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL the last time he played, is he, coming off of two Achilles tears, going to be capable of playing football at a NFL level this year? That's the question we should be having. Because he had the meltdown in the press conference, it changed the conversation to, well, is it about the fans? Are they going to do right by the fans? This has nothing to do with the fans. This should have everything to do with football operation. He's not good enough to start. He's not good enough to be the veteran quarterback that you wanted him to be in order to run your plan as is. I understand why Todd Monken wants to play a veteran quarterback. I understand why they aren't really eager to jump in and throw Shedeur out there to start the season. I understand that. But if you want a veteran quarterback, you have to understand that you don't have one on the roster. Deshaun Watson may look like a veteran quarterback. He might seem like a veteran quarterback on paper, but his play has proven that he's not really a veteran quarterback. But because Todd's only been here a year, he's going to rely on what he's seen at practice. He doesn't understand that Browns fans for 4 years have watched the dissonance between what Deshaun looks like at practice and what he looks like in the games. We have watched Deshaun have a good game here or there, think that he's going to turn the corner, and then he drops a fat turd. We have been through it. It's not that we don't want to believe in Deshaun Watson anymore. It's that we have no choice based on what we've seen. That's where they are with him. And unfortunately, since Todd is new, he's at a different place. But he'll learn the same lesson, more than likely. I'm sure Deshaun will go out there and maybe he'll look good in one of those first 2 games. But we all know where this is going to end eventually. We all know where this is going to take us. We've been on this ride 4 seasons before, and this is our 5th time strapping into it. We know where this is going. Now, another element of this that I've seen people wanting to talk about is, what does this mean for Shedeur? And I think the answer for that is a little bit more complicated than people are giving it credit for. But I'll talk about that after I thank my sponsors, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 sports app. The app is really easy to use for player picks. Just pick more or less for a few player stats and lock in your lineup. That's it. Rather just pick teams, well, PrizePicks has that now too. Just pick the winner, spread, or total in any game or fight. PrizePicks is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. Plus, you can even follow me on the app at Quinn_C and tell my picks with one click and follow your friends too. Speaking of my picks, here they are. Myles Garrett over 15.75 sacks. 16's been his baseline the last few years. I'd be very surprised if he goes to LA and that number drops, given that he's going to see more passing attempts, given that LA's offense is better than what the Browns have been. Quincy Judkins, 924 yards. They had 2 really good picks for Quincy here, 6 touchdowns or 924 yards. I feel comfortable taking more on both, but 1,000 yards feels like a safer bet for Quincy. I think he's going to have a big year this year. Carson Schlesinger, 2.25 sacks. I'm saying more. Remember, Mike Rutenberg likes to blitz his linebackers a lot more than the previous defensive coordinator the Cleveland Browns had. Also, Carson Schlesinger is probably going to have to get involved as a sack producer to make up for the hole that they're going to have to make up for Myles Garrett. And then Shedeur Sanders starting more than 7.5 games. I think he'll be the starter, play about 8 games or more this year. But that's my picks for this season. Best of all, play your first $5 and get $150 in lineups if you win. Just use the promo code HMA when you sign up. Again, that's your first $5 and get $150 in lineups if you win when you use the promo code HMA. PrizePicks has switched up their offer. There's no better time to join, lock in, and win that first lineup. All right, so what does this mean for Shedeur Sanders? Now, this, I think, is an interesting question to have because on one hand, I've seen a lot of people go, oh my God, he couldn't beat out this version of Deshaun Watson. That must mean Shedeur Sanders is terrible. Other people have gone the other direction, where they think that this is a result of pure bias and that the Browns have a agenda against a player on their roster, right? We all know the two directions this is going to go. I don't think either direction is right. I don't think that this is a pure reflection on what the Browns think of Shedeur Sanders in a positive or negative way. I think the only thing this result really tells us about Shedeur is that he didn't blow away the coaching staff, right? Like whatever he did out there, maybe they think there's some promise there, but he didn't blow them away to the point to where they were willing to alter their plan. I think they gave Shedeur a chance for that to happen. Again, I think the competition was pretty fair and even up until about the third week of practice in training camp, where there was a definite shift in how things were distributed. And I talked about that before. But up until that point, I think Shedeur had every chance to make this a difficult choice for the coaching staff. But I think ultimately the coaching staff sees Shedeur as somebody with promise that is not ready for what the challenge is going to be to start this year. And that is handling a completely new offense, handling a bunch of players who've never played in this offense, handling getting everything done in a timely manner, running the plays as they're called. Like there is clearly something there that is holding them back from going with Shedeur that seems to be related to process, which has been the thing that people have relented on the most about Shedeur. You know, the talent about being able to throw an accurate football has always been there with Shedeur, but there's always been hesitation with Shedeur when it comes to coaches in the NFL because of process. This is now the second coach that has had similar has had a similar holdback on Shedeur, right? It's not just Kevin, it was also Todd, right? The second coach. And Todd said, hey, I wanted to draft you. So there's no question of like whether Todd wanted Shedeur here or not. I think Todd very obviously wants Shedeur here. I think, though, that for coaches, there is something process-related that is holding them up when it comes to Shedeur Sanders. And I think the Browns were hoping that time could answer that problem for them. And they were hoping that Deshaun Watson could give them time. I think the plan was always a simple one. We're going to play a veteran quarterback for maybe a quarter to half the season, and then we'll roll Shedeur out there, give him a chance to be successful, and see what happens. I think that was always the intended plan post week 3 of training camp for the Cleveland Browns this year. I don't know if Deshaun Watson is going to be good enough to hold up his end of the bargain, and I don't know what that means for Shedeur. But the thing that you could tell is that there is obviously something holding up front offices and head coaches from making this guy the week 1 start. It doesn't mean that he has no potential, that he's a CFL quarterback or a UFL quarterback or anything crazy like that. But what it does mean is that there is something there that people have to reckon with. That is the reason he's not on the field. Because if he had blown away the coaching staff, if his process was really, really good and on par or better than Deshaun Watson's, he would be starting. Or at least it would be clear that Shedeur is being prepared to start from week 3 on. But the fact that that's not the case, I think tells you that there's something holding them back from going there. That they think that Shedeur could be better if he plays later rather than early. That's just the reality with Shedeur Sanders. I think the problem with Shedeur is that a lot of people want this to happen a lot quicker than it looks like it's meant to happen for him. I think eventually Shedeur will have a good season in the NFL as a quarterback. I just don't think if it's going to happen in his first couple of seasons. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Browns could benefit from it. But I think he's probably going to be somebody on his third or fourth team where he pops up, he has a good year, right? Because the tools are there for him to be a good quarterback. The problem is how he looks at the game, how he processes. It could be slow, and it's just not really what NFL offenses are looking for in this day and age. It's just too long. And that needs to change. How he looks at the game, how he processes the game, how he processes through plays. It needs to change, and that's a very difficult thing to change. But Shedeur has demonstrated that he could change some things, right? His pocket mechanics have gotten better in the preseason, right? He hasn't taken one terrible sack. So I don't want to act like he can't progress. I think he can. I just think that the kind of progression we're talking about here is the kind of progression that takes a while. Which is why I think the Browns just didn't want to throw him out there week one. I don't think this is necessarily a super negative reflection on Shedeur. I don't think this is, the Browns think he's terrible. They don't think he's better than Watson. I think that they feel like it's better for the team if they have a veteran start and they put in Shedeur later. Obviously, in reality, because Deshaun Watson's a huge distraction, that math changes for me. Where I'm like, yeah, I get it, but you can't have a controversial starting quarterback who's going to get booed by his fans, but will be booed by the fans of the team. So you need to just start Shedeur. That's what I would have done in this situation. Or better yet, I would have probably just gotten a better veteran quarterback than Deshaun Watson to fill that void. But unfortunately, I think we're in a spot where they're going to have a quick hook on Watson. We'll see how quick of a hook it is. It's probably going to be guaranteed the first 4 weeks because the road to start the season, you could say a lot of things are going to affect quarterback play. So you're not really, if you're the Browns, I'm not talking about fans. Fans are going to blame Deshaun Watson. But like the Browns organization, they're not going to blame him. And in week 3 against Carolina is going to be the first home game. It might get ugly, but week 4 is a short week. So they're probably not going to make a change there. They're going to give him the first 4 weeks of the season guaranteed. After that, there could be a quick hook. Like I think after the Pittsburgh game is probably when they pull the hook on Deshaun Watson and then put in Shedeur. We'll see if I'm right about that. But yeah, I don't know if this says as much about Shedeur as some people want it to. I think this is kind of just a reflection of where the Browns are as an offense and what they think is required from the quarterback position to be able to run the offense and what they want. What they wanted is a veteran quarterback. And Deshaun Watson is the thing in that quarterback room that resembles that the most. But unfortunately, he ain't really a veteran quarterback. And I think that's going to be pretty clear for this team at some point. But that's my thoughts on this. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.